So when I'm looking at doing my still life, I'll have my three objects for this project, and in this case I'll have a squash, an apple, and some grapes, and I'm going to arrange them somewhere nearby in a way that I like, and then I'm going to start sketching them from the angle that I see them. So I want to use my really gentle pencil pressure for this. I don't want to push hard because I'm going to be going back and erasing a lot of things when I start adding my colors in. I want to make sure if I make a mistake that I need to correct, that I have the ability to erase it completely from my paper, and I haven't pushed so hard that it put a dent in my paper, because you can't erase the dents. Once they're in that paper, they are not going anywhere. So you have to be very careful about your pressure on your paper. Now remember, we talked about getting kind of the general shape, and you notice I'm very sketchy. I'm not drawing one solid line all the way around. I'm sketching. I'm picking my pencil up and putting it back down on the paper fairly quickly, and being careful to look at that foreshortening if it's coming at me. Something gets a little smaller, seems kind of like it has an odd angle to it. I'm being careful to add that in. I don't have to add too many details to this because I'm not going for super realistic. I'm just looking to see if you guys know where to put your shadows or your shades and your reflections or your tints with the colors that you're using for this particular project. Go back down here, add in the grapes, and the grapes you're going to see completely are the ones that are most in front of the other ones. So you're going to want to draw those first, and then you can go back and you can sketch in the other grapes that are behind those ones, and you might even have a third layer where a couple of extra ones show up just around the edges. And I have a stem and an extra leaf that comes out on the side over there. And I can't have these just floating in space. I want to ground them like we've talked about in our still life. So I'm going to put the edge of my table, even though I might not see it at this angle, I'm aware of the fact that it's there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that table edge in. And then I'm going to start adding my color. So the first thing I want to use, I'm going to try oil pastels to demonstrate those for you. It's going to work the same way that it did before when we talked about making tints and shades. We're going to add lighter and darker to give us those reflections and the shadows. And you can use the lights in the classroom if you want for your reflection and shadow, or if it's easier for you, you can just designate a corner that has your sun. Draw it in really light because you're going to go back and erase it. But now I know that my light source is going to come this direction when I'm adding all of those in. When I start doing this apple, I start with my base color, and I want to make sure I'm following the same shape as my apple. And then I go back in and I add my darker colors, my lighter colors, and finally the red on top of everything to smooth it out. Same thing with colored pencils. Instead of using white to make my lightest colors, I'm going to use yellow and a light peach color for this one. And to create my shadows and my shades, I'm going to go with a darker color, such as blue, and dark green to add in those shadows. I can use white as a blender when I'm finished. When I do the grapes, it's very similar. I'm going to start with my base color, and then I can go back in and add the shadows using a darker color, such as blue, and I can add my reflections with a lighter color like the white to give it that rounded look. Same thing with my leaves, base color, lighter color, darker color. When I start to put the background in, on this one I'm using crayons. I want to stick with colors that I haven't used very much in my drawing, and I'm going to give it a lighter source up here in the corner and a darker in the other. I want to use a nice complementary color to it, so I used an orangish color on the top. I'm going to use a blue on the bottom. And then I'm going to add those shadows in underneath my pieces of fruit. Remember, they're not just floating. We want to anchor them on there.